Overnight, the world has changed for all of us. I think that we all now spend much more time in video conferences, either with your colleagues or with individual teams in your professions. And on the other hand, it means lots of video conferences on social networks, or we use social networks or video conferences to just have a glass of wine with our friends. But today, what we have prepared for you is another type of a video conference, another type of a call. Hello to all of you. What we have tried to do is to meet because we think that in the times of panicking, you can't do good things. That's why we are starting now the anti-panic video conference. You can witness a meeting of a number of top people, of creative people, in short, of all people who have an impact on our society. We have gathered not only the main speakers, whom I will introduce in a while, but many prominent people from the Czech and foreign industries, and also strategists or creative people. Of course, we will introduce some of these prominent people. But let's now introduce our main speakers, the 11 speakers that we are hosting. First, it's Tomáš Šebek, surgeon and founder of the website ulajkaře.cz. We will also talk to Tomáš Salomon, chairman of the board and CEO of Česká spořitelna, Tanja Vajdňo, a global director of ABB Robotics Tier 1. We will also talk to Yemi AD, the Goodwill Ambassador of the Czech Republic and CEO and Creative Director of Czech Productions. We will also talk to Pavel Šiška, Managing Partner of Deloitte Central Europe. We will be in contact with Milan Šemelák, co-founder of Unicorn etX and the author of the idea of creative value. We will also have Tanja Lemoň with us. She is the director at Google for Czechia, Hungary, Romania and Slovakia. We will also talk to Vít Schubert, co-founder of Unicorn etX. Petr Rokusek is another main speaker. He's founder and chairman of the board of directors of Nano Energies. Tomáš Havriluk is the vice chairman of the board of Alza.cz. And the last but not least, out of these 11 main speakers, is Radek Špicar, vice president of the Confederation of Industry. And we have also prepared one big surprise for you, because it will be a great honor for us to host Madeleine Albright during our video conference. She is the founder of Albright companies, and we will be in contact with her in Washington. Thanks to all of these people, we would like to show you that despite the serious situation, we should share common know-how, which should help us move forward and be even better. But we have to do it together. If you lose the signal during the video conference, you will find the complete recording of this video conference on the website Anti-Panic Live. At the very beginning, I would like to thank our sponsors, Unicorn etX, Deloitte, and of course also the team of Yemi, who during 1 week organized the whole video conference. What you can see has been created in just a few hours, and the team has been working on the video conference since Monday. We would like to thank Coca-Cola, Vitlav, Ipsos, and also our media partner, Hospodářské noviny. And by the way, the nice studio that you can see here is the work of XLab, which ensures for example, the graphics for NBA or NHL matches. I'm sure that most of you have been in video conferences over the past few days, so you know what it is like when someone speaks for more than 2 minutes, so we will try to keep this in mind. And I have now been speaking for 2 minutes, so I'm going to turn to our guests, and I would like to ask them to be as specific as possible. They will show us some examples of how to become even better and how to get out of this situation. Let's meet the first guest, who is Tomáš Šebek, manager of the COVID team at the Na Františku Hospital and also participant in many missions of the Médecins Sans Frontières. Tomáš, hello. Good afternoon to all of you. When I can see you, I hope that you will not leave this video conference and go to take care of your patients. How were the past days for you? Well, at this moment, I'm a part of the team which is called COVAX at the Nad Františku Hospital. I'm just a backup surgeon, and I should be switching my colleague when she becomes tired or when she becomes infected. Then I should become a part of this multidisciplinary team. Apart from that, I work for my own company, for the website ulekaře.cz, which is basically a virtual waiting room for all patients in the Czech Republic. During the coronavirus crisis, all these patients should have access to doctors, to healthcare professionals. It's not open only for people who need help with coronavirus, but for all patients who need to find access to healthcare professionals, and there can maybe some hundreds or thousands of people. I wanted to ask about one specific example that can contribute to improvement of the whole situation, but I think that you have already mentioned that because the server ulekaře.cz is such an example. So let me just ask one personal question. What is it like for you to be ready and to know that you might replace someone who gets infected? Can you feel this pressure? How can you work under such circumstances? What do you think about? Well, for me, the situation is not new because I took part in many missions, humanitarian missions, over the past 10 years. For example, I worked in places with outbreak of Ebola or cholera. So sometimes it's better to start working than to wait for the moment to come, because waiting is harder than active participation. I'm very glad that I'm part of this conference with an appropriate name. I try to remain calm, I try not to panic, and try to tell others that they should not start panicking. We have seen a great wave of solidarity over the past weeks, which is tremendous, and I think this is what we need to find a way out of this situation. Of course, this situation is new for many of us, but it's not new for the world. And thanks to the organizers of this video conference, we will find a way out together. I'm trying to contribute to the improvement of the situation as a doctor, and as regards our company, the situation changed overnight. We are trying to come up with new applications, for example, with the waiting room, and we hope that the waiting room will really facilitate the situation, that it will improve the situation in the healthcare area. What we should also keep in mind is that we are able to cooperate, we know how to be flexible, and in these times, we should always stick to our basic liberties. That has been Tomáš Šebek. He also outlined some of the topics that might be interesting for our 100 leaders. I already mentioned that we would have 100 leaders as guests. You will have the opportunity to influence the content of the upcoming minutes. If you are interested in what Tomáš Šebek has mentioned, and if you're interested in his projects, please use the chat, use the hashtag ulekaře.cz. Our colleagues are monitoring that, and they will choose the topics that you are most interested in. Let's go on to the second guest, it's Tomáš Salomon, Chairman of the Board and CEO of Česká spořitelna. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to all of you. How are you coping with the situation? I presume that you work from home, that you have to spend much more time with your family. So how do you perceive the whole situation? Well, it's very interesting and also very inspiring. Of course, we are under more stress and things are being done much more quickly. But what is most important is that all our family is in a good health condition. My son studies in Shanghai and he came back from Asia, and at the beginning of February he went to Andalusia, to Spain. And 3 weeks ago we persuaded him that it was high time he came back to the Czech Republic, and he actually was on one of the last planes heading to the Czech Republic. He was not willing to leave the sunny region of Andalusia, but you know, it was worth it. We could see the difference in the perspective of how the different regions saw the crisis. Our board divided into 2 teams. We try not to meet each other. And of course, Česká spořitelna is part of the state infrastructure. The basic services, therefore, should be always available to the people. These are interesting times, and I hope that during this video conference we will be able to talk about it in further detail. What I'm most concerned about is that we should not have a reverse trend. I think this is a great opportunity for improvement. This is a great time of solidarity, of people cooperating with each other, and we should use this opportunity for changes that would otherwise take much longer. And I can think of many types of support, for example. And for you, what is the inspiring moment? And now I'm asking you as a non-professional, but is it possible for Česká spořitelna to manage the whole company using 2 teams, the 2 teams of the board? Well, about 18 months ago, we started transformation of the company, and I call it now a dry run. And now after 18 months, we are in the real situation, and I'm amazed that all of the processes can work. For example, the deferral of installments is an enormous task, but we started using robots. And I think that under normal circumstances, this project would last about half an hour. But here, thanks to leadership, thanks to solidarity and cooperation, the whole project was implemented during 1 week, and all the applications for the deferrals are processed by robots. So that's a great example. And I would like to follow up on Tomáš Šebek. We cooperated with one company that is a partner of ulékaře.cz, and it was a great project. And we decided that we would roll on one of the similar projects, so we can actually implement decisive processes in the Czech Republic. And thanks for inviting me to this conference. Tomáš Salomon, thank you again. And now I'm talking again to our 100 leaders. If you are interested in what Tomáš Salomon said, don't hesitate to write your comments in the chat. Using the hashtag Česká spořitelna. We will see whether you are interested in this topic. This video conference doesn't have a clear script. It's up to you what you are interested in. Now let's move on to Tania Vaňo, Global Director of ABB Robotics Tier 1. Hello, good afternoon to all you as well. Dobré odpoledne.
Chtěl bych se zeptat na vás a na ten váš osobní
I would
pohled.
like to ask about your personal perspective, what it's like for you, and I'm asking personally, what is it like to respect that you should stay at home during the quarantine? I assume that you also manage your company from remotely, so how do you feel about this situation?
it's a very unique time. So first of all, I'd like to say that I'm good, my family is good. And it's interesting because at the moment I'm actually spending more time in Prague than I have been spending the last 4 years when I was running ABB for Czech Republic and Slovakia. And at that time I was based in Prague. So in January, I moved to a new position and I took over robotics for automotive tier one. I have 700 people around the world in 23 different countries. So you can imagine as of January, I was spending most of my time traveling and I was not that much home. So the last 3 weeks has really been reconnecting us as a family in a very, very unique way. Then from the business perspective, I think for all of us business leaders, the world has changed dramatically over the past 3 weeks. And many things have been said, and I think that we will hear many things from the others. But one of the things that I find very inspiring is that we talk a lot about leadership, and right now, look at us all of here. We are all working from home and together with all of our employees at all levels. So we are much more equal than we ever were before. Look at us. There is no corner offices. There is no need for private drivers. There is no business class seats. There is only one internet, only one Zoom, only one Skype. And I think for us as a business leaders, it's a great reminder how leadership is not about those corner offices or private jets or private car drivers. It is about influencing the people. And now we have to do it in distant mode. So it's a very, very interesting time period. Super excited what life will look after that, and very excited to be part of today's conversation.
Ještě jedna otázka, vy už jste částečně naznačila, co vás inspiruje.
One more question. You have already indicated what inspires you, but I would like to know if you, for example, know about an example from your surroundings that might be inspiring, for example, how some companies are helping out and offering their own products. Do you know about something that you have found, for example, impressive for you, an example of some communities and companies helping the society? Do you have an example?
Well, I think there are a couple of examples, and I think let me first out the point safety. I think ABB and other companies are going really on their way to keep their employees safe, because not everyone can work from home. We have hundreds of factories around the world, and we are doing our utmost best to make sure that the factories can keep running and that our people are safe. So I think there are a lot of good examples how you can maintain your operations in critical industries and still keep your people safe. I'm truly inspired about that. And then I'm also inspired about bringing in technology. I think now it's time to really front leap the usage of technology. And I think like Thomas Salomon was saying, that some of the things that actually took a while back are going to be much faster now. So what we are doing, for example, is that we are offering remote services for our customers for free in robotics. So you can have offline software where you can do all the simulations offline. And we can also connect the robots to the internet and through cloud, and we can remotely operate and also maintain and do a lot of maintenance to our robots. And this is really important because ABB is in the industries where our customers are maintaining critical infrastructure such as power networks, but also production lines for food and beverage that needs to be running at the moment. So I think these are examples how technology can really help us to overcome the situation, and technology can really help us to keep our critical infrastructure running at the moment. And I think once again, it's also a point of leadership in terms of what is really a distant leadership. So how do you keep the people engaged? And here technology again, like today, we would not be having this conference 10 years ago without the technology that we have available today. So technology is also helping us as leaders in every company to keep our people engaged by making sure that we stay connected when we have to stay distant at the same time.
Pro tuto chvíli
So I would like to thank you for the time being. We are now moving on. If you want to learn more from Tanya Vainio, so you can use the hashtag robotics, and then we will just realize that we should spend more time on this topic during the conference. So let us now move on, because we are now in touch with Yemi, the creative director and CEO of Yemi AD Jet Productions. So I would like to ask you, what does the current situation mean for you from the private perspective? Now you are more between the four walls of your
já si
office.
myslím, že dokud je moje rodina zdravá,
As long as my family is safe and healthy, be it in Liberec or Chomutov, I'm happy. To be honest, it kick-started me, the current situation, because I now pay more attention to what really makes sense, and I really stopped bothering about things that I should have stopped bothering about a long time ago. So I'm really sorry about those people who are now suffering in pain worldwide, or who have died, but those who are healthy should definitely do those things which make sense. Is there something that might inspire you from the past weeks? Besides the fact that I've been working on preparing this conference in the past days and weeks, I in fact had to reorganize my dancing platform, and it is now live streamed. So, for example, you can now see how a dancing lecture is organized. When we started this, it was beautiful to see how the parents are moving the furniture in the rooms of their children so that they can continue learning dancing. Thanks to this platform, the children can learn how to dance, and maybe before they did not have enough time for going to a dancing course, and now they can use this platform. And we also now have a partnership with the Cafe in Prague in the Rytířská Street. It is closed, in fact, we recorded our training from the cafe establishment. Excellent. We will not miss each other. This was Yemi AD. If you want to know more about Yemi AD, I am now talking to the Essential 100, so please write the hashtag art in the chat. We are now moving on to Pavel Šiška, to the managing partner in Deloitte Central Europe. Hello to you. Deloitte has a very wide spectrum of activities. How difficult was it to start managing the activities from at home? We have a very broad spectrum of services, and we provide them in many regions. At this moment, we are managing 17 or 18 countries, depending whether or not you acknowledge Kosovo. But it's quite difficult to switch to the home office immediately. In some areas, it was pretty easy, but in some areas, it's hardly possible. So, for example, if you want a manual laborer, a chimney sweeper, to start from the home office, so it's quite difficult to have the chimneys swept from at home. We also now have an infected colleague on the third floor of our building, so once this conference is over, we will have to start with the disinfection. So I'm the last one in the office now. I'm the only one and the last one in the office after the infection was confirmed. But I think that the people are really responding well. They are initiative now, and when they are supported, they can really fix problems within weeks. And in the past, some of these problems took years to be solved. I'm interested in one thing. I hope you are safe in the room where you are. Okay, we'll definitely fix it. Despite the current situation you are experiencing, do you still find some energy, a driver that really tells you this is good, this is an example to follow. I'll tell you something that I wanted to share with you, which is really the driver which energizes me. It is associated with today's crisis and the epidemia. But I'm really fascinated by what the colleagues manage in Israel. That Israel is a good example of a country where they do not apply the one-size-fits-all approach, and they have a very targeted approach, and within a couple of days they manage to create a platform processing information about the fact that we have a potentially infected person with contagion. They immediately contact him and help him with self-diagnosis, and they make an appointment for him. They help him with a treatment. If he does not need medical treatment in hospital, they collect data and inform the Ministry of Health and other related authorities about it. It is quite a complex system enabling a very targeted approach, and it has a minor impact on the economy. And I believe that it is the right approach, and it is excellent that this technology has enabled this. And the technology the technology emerged within a couple of days, maybe even due to the excellent cooperation with the government. Thanks to their experience, they are better in this respect. But this was really fascinating to me. This was Pavel Šiška. Thank you. And now, once again, turning to the Essential 100. If you want to know more about this topic, so please write the hashtag Rychlost zmian, speed of changes. We are now handing over to Milan Shemelang, the co-founder of Unicorn Attacks. Hello to you. Hello. So I would like to ask you to be as specific as possible in your answers. I will now start with a very simple question. So how are you now in these days? So I would say that we have live at a different pace now. Those people who are creative need a good pace, be the pace of your family or of your business. We are used to a specific pace, but now the pace has let down. So both in the family and business environment. So I took some 2 weeks to realize how to continue. I know that our customers have been quite trying to grow and expand, but now they are rather trying to minimize their business. So we now have to find the right pace of our activities. And if I asked you what was inspiring to you, what was it in the past days? I sent a couple of pictures to your colleagues from the production team. On the one hand, I'm really grateful for the crisis because the people in the business are now viewing the situation from a different perspective, because we must now sell those things which the people need. We can now see a great mobilization among SMEs. People enable those things which were not possible a couple of weeks ago. So this is a bookstore from the Vinohrady quarter, and now they bring you a book within a couple of hours. Or on the next slide, you can see the punk beer. It is one of the most famous craft punk beers. At this moment, the beer is not really necessary, and the brewery changed the production and started producing this punk sanitizer. And they do not have to offer it in promotions at all. Or, for example, the Prague chocolate is another good example. I think it is really hard business. Petr Kováčik and his team created a platform in which you can buy a chocolate and donate it to the people in the first field, in the first line. It helps you keep your revenues and you help other people. So this is really good value for the customers, and it is no marketing trick, it is real value. You may know about one course, about one affair of McDonald's. So this is exactly what should not be done. So it is really superficial. Superficial campaign only, bring no real value, no added value. I do advocate those companies which are doing something well, and these companies will always survive any crisis. This was very interesting. Thank you for that. I hope that the Essential 100 want to learn more about it and that they write the hashtag creative value. It was very interesting.
Dalším naším hostem je Táňa Lemoň, ředitelka Google pro Česko, Slovensko, Maďarsko a Rumunsko. Doufám, že všechny ty země vyjmenovávám správně. Táňo, i vám přeji dobrý den. A doufám, že se slyšíme dobře. Já pro jistotu položím tu první otázku, snad to všechno klapne.
Just to be sure, can you hear us? Yes, I can hear you. That's great. How about you and your life these days? How demanding is that for you? Well, we are in a good health condition, all of us at home, so this is most important. We have an 8-year-old son at home who should pass the final exams at the secondary school, so let's see how it goes. But as I said, we are all fine, so that's great. I think that there are many people who are in a worse situation. Yes, that's what I have also wanted to say. And what inspired you? What inspired you? What good examples could you see around you? Well, this whole situation, these times are very unique, and perhaps this will not happen again in our lives. When we remember these times, we might call it the period before COVID and after COVID. And I think that this period of time generated a number of great examples. I can't recall any other period where we would be able to notice such an energy, such solidarity over the past 2 or 3 weeks. And we could see many examples of the human character, of the practical aspects. I think that Czechs have been very successful in this. I'm in contact with a number of colleagues in various countries, so I dare say that we should really be proud of ourselves and that we managed the whole situation very well as a nation. If I am to mention a positive example, first I would like to thank my colleagues, because Google Czechia is a tiny team of just several people. And the mobilization that we could see some 2 or 3 weeks ago was terrific. We moved people to home office overnight, but in our industry, this is not uncommon because thanks to technologies, this is a part of our life. But it's more complicated for people taking care of their children or for their parents. And this applies to about a half of my team. So they need to carry out their work in a more demanding regime. But let me mention the positive example. Over the weekend, for example, they shot a video for their school and they tried to persuade them to start using the service Google Classroom, which is one of our services. Let me mention several other examples from our industry. I'm sorry to step in, but we will have time to talk about more examples, but we should now give space to all speakers. If you want to know more about the positive examples from Táňa Lemoň, you have the opportunity to influence this using the hashtag design thinking. We are now monitoring the questions coming in, and we will definitely definitely have enough time to answer them. Let's move on. Now I'm switching to Vít Schubert, co-founder of Unicorn Attacks. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How have the past weeks been for you? Well, I spent more time at home and with my family, which is a positive effect. But, there is one level which you can see at the level of the business, and it makes me quite sad because many individuals and many companies are now fighting for their existence. And this is all due to the panic mode. And I welcome this video conference because we should really calm down. What we are now experiencing is not influenced only by the statements of the government, but also by the media. And I think that we should bring positive statements to the business. I'm not meaning the cliches like a crisis is an opportunity. People should start focusing on the core activities of their business. And that's what they should work on already now. But not everyone can focus on the core activities. And there is the second level, the personal level. During the Velvet Revolution, I was 18 years old, and Tanya has mentioned that people are able to implement something over a very short period of time. And that's what I experienced during the Velvet Revolution. You know, people were helping each other, and I hope that this will remain with us, that we will be able to mobilize society not only during the epidemics, but also afterwards. And I would like to follow up on what Tomáš Šebek said at the beginning. People should remember these times, and we had some positive feelings during the revolution as well, and we should not go back to the negative aspects that we had experienced before the revolution. Yes, I think this resonates with me very well. This was Vít Schubert, co-founder of Unicorn Attacks. If you want to hear more from Vít Schubert, the hashtag is NextVision. And I am now turning, that this has been just a reminder for the 100 leaders. I am now talking to Petr Rokusek, founder and chairman of the board of directors of Anon Energies. Good afternoon. Hello. I hope that you will hear us well. Again, I would like to know how the last days have been for you, whether you were limited by something or not. The interpreters are sorry, but we can't hear the speaker. We are sorry for the quality of the sound. It seems that there is a technical problem with the sound, so we will try to go back to you once the technical issues are resolved. Let's continue then, because we want to speak to all of our guests that are connected. So, the next guest is Tomáš Havriluk, Vice Chairman of the Board of Alsace CZ. Good afternoon. Hello. We can hear you well, which is great. My question is, how about you, your personal perspective? I can imagine that for you, the current situation does not mean that you have less work at the home office. We are a company that is able to multiply the flow of goods many times. For example, before the Christmas holiday, we can work in crisis situations. And we have sent many people to home office very early at the beginning of the outbreak, and we provided them with the necessary technology. And as has been said, we could see that some things could be done within a few days. And As for me, I have been on antibiotics for about 3 weeks now, but the whole of my team is working from home. We have regular meetings, and now we are not only planning, but we can see some waves. We try to record these waves and we try to sail in harmony. What I would like to emphasize here are two things. The one thing that I can see in the world. I'm also a part of the group COVID-19 CZ, which gathers many volunteers and professionals. And we as Czechs started to come up with new solutions, such as the helpline 1212. And we are working on a call center or a similar solution. Mapi.cz started a channel of protecting people from the contagion. So these are examples that I can be proud of. And as for the negative aspects, for many entities, this is an opportunity to strengthen their position, and that's why we should be very careful and we should always protect our democracy. That was Tomáš Havriluk and his memento for everyone watching this conference and deciding. Let me remind you that if you want to hear more from Tomáš Havriluk, you have the possibility. This is a reminder for the 100 leaders. Use the hashtag future operations. Write your comments. This will be a signal for us that we should talk more with some of our guests. So we know that we should go into more detail with them. Let's move to Radek Špicar, Vice President of the Confederation of Industry. Good afternoon. Again, a simple question. How are you doing? Well, I can't complain about anything. We are all in a good health condition, including my parents and grandparents. So our company is doing good, but what is not doing good is the Czech industry. And as I'm a representative of the industry, of course, I'm very much affected by the crisis. I also take care of 2 daughters, and I hope, or I strive, to help the Czech industry survive. And let's hope that it will be even stronger. You have mentioned Czech industry. Let's focus on the industry. Can you already see a positive example changing the direction of the industry? Where could Czech industry get a positive example, or is it only the start of the transformation and of the changes? As I have said, Czech industry, and especially the traditional industries, are having a hard time now. The traditional industries account for about 40% of Czech GDP. A symbol of this is the experience of Škoda. I was with Škoda during the economic crisis, and even then the production did not stop. And now Škoda stopped the operation, stopped the production, and it will last for some time. And imagine that Škoda Auto accounts for 9% of the GDP. This is the backbone of Czech industry. So the situation is very gloomy. But you know, as has been said in this video conference, no one should start panicking, and we have a great number of positive examples. There are many companies that started helping the state when it was clear that the state was not ready. And the companies showed their CSR activities. We could also understand that the economy is divided into companies with lots of people and little work, and into companies with lots of work but very few people. And one specific example of cooperation was the web platform Spojujeme Čechy.cz. And I would now appeal to all Czechs who are interested in this project. We have the first specific results. We gathered developers from the Czech Technical University who produced respirators in cooperation with the company Sigma Lutin. And they are now producing the respirators that can help the current situation. Thank you for now. And if you want to know more from Radek Špicar, please use the hashtag modern technology. So you can write your comments. So always please send your comments with the particular hashtags for the individual speakers. At the very beginning, I said that apart from the 11 guests, 11 speakers with whom we will have a discussion, there will also be a special guest. But before contacting our special guest, let's start again to contact Petr Rokusek, founder chairman of the board of directors of Nano Energies. Can you hear us? Yes, I can hear you. The signal is very good. We can also hear you very well. I would be interested in your personal experience from the past days. I'm now abroad. I was unable to go to the Czech Republic. And we take care of our children in the form of alternative care, but I decided to stay abroad because of the work and because of the environment, and I'm in contact with my children through technologies. I have noticed some differences. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it seems again that the connection is very poor. We will try to resolve that. But I will now turn to the group of 100 leaders. If you want to know more from Petr Rokusek, please use the hashtag energies. Energie. We will try to improve the connection with Petr Rokusek. Of course, this video conference has been organized within a very short time span. And we are glad that all of our guests accepted the invitation. So these are hard times and we have to be very flexible. That's what you experience as well during your work. I have mentioned that we have one special guest ready for you, so let's connect with Madeleine Albright in Washington. She is the president of the Albright Stonebridge and Capital Management, and she is the former Minister of Foreign Affairs of the United States. Good afternoon. Hello. I'm very glad for this invitation. Thank you, Jeme, for inviting me. We are glad that you are connected to us. What is your personal experience from this even more critical situation in the US? Well, I'm sitting at home. I'm reading all the articles and I'm listening to the news. Everything's all right for me, but it's very complicated because we are a huge country that has not been well prepared for the crisis, and we are all sorry for this. There is lots of work to do, and people say that the worst is still to come, but you know, I'm glad that you are all right. I work, I also teach at the Georgian University, and I do this through the Zoom tool. And this weekend we should be playing a game where my students will have a role to play, and we will play a situation in Venezuela. So let's see how it goes, because this is an experiment for the students and for myself. I do various jobs. I do what I can, but I'm alone. And I'm a type of person who likes to meet people. So for me, it's very hard to be alone. So this is a great opportunity for me to meet you, to be in contact with you. And we are very glad that we can be listening to you. So thanks for connecting to this video conference. Based on your experience with the current crisis, what should the world do? How should the world respond to the current crisis?
I think what we have seen is that the world is interconnected. That is what we have worked to do for many, many years. And therefore, what we have to do is understand that this disease is crossing borders in every way. I do think we need to have a solution that is multilateral, because when something happens in one part of the world, it affects us all. And we have seen that. And there are those who are concerned about what is happening in the developing world, that what happens in Africa comes home to all our countries in many different ways. And I am counting on the multilateral organizations doing something. Secretary General Guterres at the United Nations is calling on all of us. The G20 has decided to support countries that need their help in terms of finances and working with things. So I believe that this is another time for multilateralism in a very good way, and understanding that we are interconnected. I have been inspired by many stories, one obviously by my parents, who were born in Prague, born in Czechoslovakia, and who had to leave their country to go to England all during the war, and how they tried to make the abnormal seem normal. And we have to figure out how we're going to operate in this very, very different world.
Okay, so let's continue in English, at least for a while, and for this last question, because in the end, can you give us, let's say, one particular example of the right approach to the current situation, which we should actually follow?
Well, I do think what is interesting, and something that I have worked on a lot generally, is public-private partnerships. And that is certainly true of this particular group of people. And I have been working with a company, CEPI, that is in fact working with scientists in order to try to develop a vaccine against this. So it is working with a group of international scientific organizations. It is working with governments. It is working with the private sector. And I think it is a very good idea in order to do that. The other thing that I think is very important, and I had an interesting time listening to your previous speakers and how many of this said this, I think we have to work very hard to make sure that democracy is preserved, that what happened in 1989 and the evolution of democratic governments is something that is cherished and worked on, and that governance is hard, and it takes public-private partnerships and looking at organizations, how they can operate together. It takes a faith in our citizens, and it takes faith in our institutions, and not to turn to leaders who think they have all the answers, because it's the people who have the answers.
Actually, one more question, because you've already mentioned democracy and freedom. So from your point of view, where is the line and border between protecting people from the point of view of the government, and on the other side, the freedom, democracy, and let's say freedom globally?
Well, I do think that there are some dangers in terms of those people that think they are stable geniuses that can solve all the problems by themselves without the cooperation of other parts of their government, of the relationships between the executive and the parliaments, and civil society, and the involvement of the private sector. And so I do think that we have to be very careful not to get seduced by those who think that they can make all the rules, that the rules come from those that are part of societies. We saw all that, and I was so proud of what was happening in the Czech and Czechoslovakia at the end of the Cold War. This has to go. We have to remember the importance of democracy, and listening to the people while also understanding that there are certain rules that have to be made about wearing masks or about being at home, that is something only that the government can resolve, but not as a permanent feature.
You've mentioned those stable genius. So how should we actually explain to people, to a nation, that those stable genius could be dangerous?
Well, I think the person that actually coined the term was Mussolini. I do think that it is important to understand that not everybody has all the answers. And I wrote a book, and the best quote is actually from Mussolini, which is that if a chicken is plucked one feather at a time, nobody notices. And we have to be very careful that the chicken is not plucked, that in fact we are following carefully what the rules that are being made. I'm very troubled by what is happening next door to all of you with the Hungarians. And so I do think that it is important to point out what has gone wrong and recognize that there are lessons to be learned. And I was very, very pleased when I heard your previous panelists, several of them mention the importance of 1989 and remembering what it brought to all our people.
Madeleine Albrightová, díky moc za všechny vaše odpovědi, za váš čas.
For all of your answers, for your time, and I wish
Děkuji
you
vám moc krát, že tohle děláte a doufám, že ještě potom můžeme mluvit. A jak jsem řekla na začátku,
I am really grateful for this discussion and thank you for your job you have done. And really very pleased that I was born close to the place where you are. I'm Czech and I very much liked the conference with you now. Thank you once again. This was Madeleine Albright. So let us now move on because we now have the first large debate of our guests ahead of us. We looked at the questions and we wanted to know what you were interested in. We know that we had some questions concerning the internet banking, but some questions also went to the internet banking. We are now in touch with all of the 11 panelists. We should now hear all of us, each other. So it's an open discussion. I will put a question, but we'll be very happy if you respond to each other. So you now have the chance. So if you are, for example, if you want to know something more, so just intervene and ask the question yourself or follow up on that. I will try to moderate it, but if it is just an interview between the two of us, I will let you speak undisturbed. I like the words of Radek Špicar. When I took a look at the questions that we got from the Essential 100s, I like the question, what do you think about the systemic involvement of SMEs in the protection of the people, and how do you view this in the context of purchasing the protective equipment from China? This was one of the most important topics from the very beginning. As I said at the beginning, this crisis will definitely improve the reputation of the Czech businessmen in the Czech Republic. We know that we had many scandals after the Velvet Revolution and many corruption affairs, but what we now can see the businessmen doing is really a very respectful conduct, and it will definitely improve the reputation. We receive dozens of offers from Czech companies which, for example, want to improve the supplies of protective equipment because, unfortunately, the government failed to purchase enough protective equipment for the healthcare workers. And we wanted this to be as systemic as possible. That is why we created a platform Spojujeme Česko, connecting Czechia, so that it has a specific culture. And this was really a great help. And by means of official letters or phone calls, we urged the government to use the Czech businesses, because the Czech businesses often have enough know-how and capacities. I had understanding at the beginning when the Ministry of the Interior said, I need 3 million respirators immediately, and Czech businesses are not able to deliver this instantly. That's understandable. It had to be imported, but otherwise the potential of the local companies must be used. But today, as we are speaking here, the government adopted the resolution to start sourcing these strategic materials from Czech businesses. You also mentioned the help of the Czech industry for the government and also the involvement of the Czech society as such in the crisis response. Tomáš Havriluk mentioned this too. Do you believe that the perception of the Czech industry and Czech businessmen will improve, that it might improve the image of the Czech businesses? So, did you ask me? Sorry, I did not get it. Well, I think we can agree with this. I think we are quite skilled. We are able to respond fast. We are able to improvise, and we are able to reorganize our businesses and operations. What I'm missing is transparency from the government. I very much appreciate the initiatives like Connecting Czechia, because they open up the dialogue. And I think that if the government relies on the Czech businesses and on the infrastructure which is in place, and if the government just points to the problems which needs to be fixed, then it would be very helpful. One question from our chat. Martin Hudeček is asking if it is wrong from the long-term perspective if the Czech industry will now go through a real catharsis, through a real disaster at this moment. So this is a question probably to Radek Špicar, but I will be happy if any of you want to respond.
We need, as an industry, is modernization, and we have to cope with what we call the fourth technological revolution. We need to use digital twins, remote access, and so on. The Czech industry used to be and still is largely conservative. Certain companies have invested a number of various resources for this, and I think this is a necessary process and a process that will be beneficial for Czech industry. Radek Špicar. If I could step in, I would agree with Radek Špicar. The efforts for modernization of Czech industry and new technologies and the investments were visible before the crisis. But what I have tried to say in my first intervention was that this is a great opportunity to accelerate the projects, because it's clear that there is a great tendency to create networks, to cooperate, and I think this is a great opportunity for many companies to start this process. And there is another aspect that is decisive. We have to work on a better connection between the state and individual companies or chambers, if you want. The opportunities for communication with the state, direct channels, are very poor. There is a great mistrust of the state. And now, because of the crisis, we start intensive negotiations, and we experience great misunderstanding and huge delays because of this. And Madeleine Albright mentioned PPP projects on connection between companies and the state. And what we need is confidence, because this is important for the decision whether we will source materials from the Czech Republic or from abroad. And if we do it from the Czech Republic, this will be a great step for future development. So for me, this is the memento from the current situation. Thanks for your comments. This all brings me to a question targeted to Tania Lemoyne. I'm interested in knowing whether Google, thanks to all the tools that you make available, you can feel requirements of Czech companies, and what are their requirements? What kind of tools would they like to use? Thanks for the floor. Well, first of all, in such a situation where we experience a global crisis, you can imagine how important the results in the browser are. So, good awareness, good information is key for prevention of panic. So we now focus on 3 areas. The first area is to ensure that people can find on Google search engine to all of the relevant information. And another area is the area of business, where we will transform a lot of services and activities to work from home. So this video conference is an example of that. For this, you need infrastructure, security, and digital skills of the companies. Because if you lack one of these aspects, you won't be able to organize such video conferences and to do business in times like these. And the third area focuses on schools. Many families have to educate their children at home, and this creates a great demand for. We are now experiencing some technical problems. Sorry for stepping in. Just to move in our discussion, Tomáš Šebek has been listening to this discussion. When we know what the platform ulékaře.cz does, how can you implement a successful project like this one? How can you persuade people that things that have been done physically can now be done virtually? Well, thanks for giving me the floor. We can see that the transformations and the changes as regards digitization in all industry are very fast, and healthcare environment is very slow in adopting new technologies. And we are receiving about dozens of thousands of requests, of questions from patients. For example, today we had to take care of it was dozens of thousands, but over the past 2 years, it was 500,000 of questions. But the patients need to be aware of the benefits. But what is more important is that doctors are interested in knowing the platform. This is all related also to issues such as e-receipt, e-prescription, or the leave for people. So all of these doctors and healthcare professionals start adopting the project, start adopting the platform, because they know what the benefits are. So especially in the healthcare area, I think this presents a great opportunity to start digitization. Remote contact, remote access is nothing new. It started in the UK, but it's also used in Spain. And we have just created a solution that is adapted to the Czech Republic and to Slovakia. The service is running. It has been tested. 320 doctors participate in the system. There are about 70 GPs, and the others are experts. So we need to connect some 40,000 doctors, and there are 10 million of patients who would use the service. So we hope that we will contribute to improvement of the healthcare area. What is our benefit is that we can't resolve everything remotely. We know that Star Trek is far away. Of course, you can't go to a pharmacy to buy a digital drug that will cure you. But we are one of the last countries not using a digital health record book. So these are all projects that we can now test, both as patients or as doctors. And finally, it is up to the doctor and the patient to start creating the system. It's not only about legal regulations. It's the same like for Rohlík CZ, for ordering goods online. So you can be in contact with your doctor online without going there physically. Okay, thanks a lot. I will ask one last question. I could see that Jiří Vávra had a question targeted to Pavel Šiška from Deloitte. Can Deloitte offer consultancy also for smaller companies, advise them on what to do? Yes, of course. There are a number of activities and things that we can do. There are classical services such as help with state support, help with taxes. That's the classical area on which we focus. But it depends, of course, on the type of industry. As I said, one size doesn't fit all. For this reason, we have prepared products, especially focusing on digitization. Many clients are now in a position of a consumer. People tended or had to go online, and you could see that the flow online has increased about 5 times. And we have prepared some products targeted to small companies. The problem of small companies is that they don't have enough capital to flexibly respond to the changes. They don't have the necessary staff, so that's the type of examples where we try to help. And of course, it will be also great if the state can step in and help. Unfortunately, there is a great delay in the activities. There are solutions that could make things simple in the state sphere and elsewhere. But there is a delay in many activities, and it takes time. And maybe it will not be as fast as in Israel, which I have mentioned. So we do have the products ready for the changes. A lot of transformation processes are going on, and what we have to do is to flexibly react to the situation. And we try to cooperate with the state, but the state is very slow in its reactions. So we try to adapt to the situation. And we hope that the projects will not last for months or years. Thank you, Mr. Šiška. Let's move on in our agenda because we are now approaching the first voting. And now I'm turning to the 100 leaders who are with us because now you are to answer a question. Let's look at the first question of our video conference. In your opinion, how long can SMEs last under the current restrictions? A, until the end of April, B, until the end of May, or C, longer? Now we have started the voting. Let's define the SMEs as self-employed people or as companies having up to 200 employees. Participants from Essential 100 can now vote. This is a group of people who can ask questions. They have the opportunity to influence the discussion. And you can see some of the representatives of this group, for example, Václav Dejčmar, partner in RSJ Investments, Mr. Marek Růžička, CEO of Datasys, Pavel Hadrbolec from T-Mobile Czech Republic and Slovak Telecom, or Wolfgang Brem von Kleinsorge, CEO of Mercedes-Benz for Central Europe. So the voting is now taking place and you are now watching the anti-panic video conference. The anti-panic video conference continues. We are now counting the votes of 100 leaders participating in the video conference. Within the Essential 100 group, they have the opportunity to influence the following discussion, and they have the opportunity to ask questions, to provide comments on what is important, and they have the possibility to vote. So now we are asking the first question. In your opinion, how long can SMEs last under the current restrictions? And 56% of people replied that SMEs should last until the end of May. So you can see that leaders, strategists or creative people, the prominent people influencing Czech society, think in 56% that SMEs can last under the current restrictions until the end of May. 24% of people think that it should be until the end of April, and 20% of them think that they should be able to last even longer than by the end of May. Let's now move on to the second part of our discussion, which you have influenced. We are going to talk about banking because there were a number of questions regarding banking. So let's start with the kickoff question with Tomáš Salomon, but I'll be glad if all of the others participate in the discussion. You can, of course, ask the others, or you can step in if you disagree with someone. Now, a question to Tomáš Salomon, Chairman of the Board and CEO of Česká spořitelna. A question from Milan Semerát. Will the state support be enough for development of our economy, or will we experience a much greater downturn of our economy that will have an impact on us? Well, you can all participate in the discussion because everyone is an expert on banking and everyone is also an expert on healthcare. This is the same like in the area of football. Everyone tends to evaluate and assess and to be a professional in the area. As for the direct and indirect support by the state, and now we are talking about hundreds or thousands of billions of Czech crowns, and the indirect support is about 800 billion. The direct support is about 150 million. Some countries are positive examples. Germany and the US, it's always about 10 to 15% of the GDP. So basically, yes, we welcome the support of the state, but the question is whether we can really move this support to the companies that need the money. And when you have to decide very fast as the government, you may come up with mistakes. And then what may happen is that the state system is unable to process the money and to provide the support. Most of the voters said that the SMEs should last until the end of May, and the state system is not ready for this. That's why we are ready to help the state, but the processes are so obsolete, so unflexible, that we would like to accelerate them. So what we want the systems or the decisions to be taken within minutes or days, but you know, on the part of the state, it takes several weeks or months. This is not to criticize. I'm not meaning to criticize this, but this is how the state systems work. We may digitize some systems in the public area, in the public sector, but we also need to have the partner. So the state must be willing to implement this right now. For example, the helpline 1212 was set up over the weekend, but this is no rocket science. I think that every one of us could do this. But it's all about the confidence and of the willingness of the state to upgrade some processes. This is key.
So when our guests heard it now, and if they can now ask this gentleman, so please use the opportunity. Radek Spitzar, so what would you like to know? I would only like to briefly comment on the words of Tomáš Salomon. COVID-1 is the interest-free loans, is a program that was utilized within a couple of days. COVID-2 was a support with state guarantees that was also utilized, the whole package, within a couple of hours, and the COVID-3 has not started yet. So the government is probably not aware of the fact that the companies will need to survive in the upcoming days, and they cannot wait weeks or months for the government to respond. And I believe that the private business, like banks, will have to assist the government authorities. And once the government can see that the state bank, guarantee bank, does not manage it on time, then it will have to increase the capacities in these state banks. So do any of you have a very specific question? Or, for example, are the companies now experiencing the need of help from banks? So if you want to have an answer from Tomáš Salomon, so Tanya Lemoy wanted to ask a question? Is it correct? I would rather like to know the following, because I think we are now all in the same boat in Europe. Tomáš, I would like to ask you how you are viewing it from the perspective of a country in Europe, how you are viewing the future of banking, and what should we do in the Czech Republic to go through the crisis well, not only as Czechia, but also as the whole of Central Europe. So we are not the only one struggling now. So the whole of Europe, maybe the whole world is struggling. How are you thinking about it? That's a very intriguing question. In the past days, I've been thinking about it a lot. You can see the natural and quick response of the governments to close the borders and to take care of the health of its population. But we are so interconnected and heavily dependent on Europe, and I'm really strongly pro-European. But the mechanisms of the European response to civil challenges do not exist. They are not set up at all. So first, I believe that the isolation of individual countries would be even larger, would be even greater. But when I joined this panic or anti-panic conference, I first thought that this would really be the end of Europe. But I am realizing that it might be the other way around. But the question is if there will be enough leadership in Europe, if we are able to accept this leadership and to support even a deeper integration, a export-oriented economy like the Czech Republic has no other chance. I'm now speaking in my own name. I'm speaking my words. When I take a look at the opportunities we have, then I would rather appreciate it if the Czech government acted as a leader and also showcased or led by example in terms of the European integration. So we must manage not only the crisis situation but also think about the future development of Europe. I will now pretend to represent a small and medium business. So on the one hand, I can want to have open businesses, to have an open approach to Europe. So, for example, if I had a restaurant, I would be suffering now because of the borders closed. But what should the small businesses be doing now? Shall they change completely and shall they look for new possibilities in the online world? Should they address Tomáš Salomon and ask him for some financial support? So what would you advise these small and medium enterprises to do? So I'm now just wondering who will like to answer. You would be able to advise a small and medium business enterprise. I will be happy to take the floor now as the first one. We have two categories of small businesses. Those who are now really on the downward spiral, they can't do anything because their businesses have been closed, they have no web shop, and they are really suffering a lot. And then there is another group of small businesses that can counteract, at least partially. I think it is true of both of these groups of businesses that their owners should really think about what has been operational and which distribution channel can now be relevant in the market. And at the same time, they should also think they should also make sure that they do not lose their employees because the owners often forgot about their employees and they will leave. And we know that the best are the first to leave the company and the worst will stay. So you shouldn't panic too much. You should really think about what is working now and what might work even in these difficult times. Try to be as flexible as possible. Forget about your processes which have been operational up to now. Try to think if the products you can offer are relevant for the market, and please look for the easiest distribution channel because many things are forbidden now, so simplicity will prevail. I will give you an example. A small company can use, for example, WhatsApp and contact its customers via WhatsApp instead of building a web shop, which will take months under these circumstances. So please use even very simple, primitive ideas to make sure that your services and products can be delivered to your customers, but it must be a relevant service, a relevant product, a product of interest for the people. I will follow up on VTech. It's also important to ask the question if it is only a patch, if it is only troubleshooting, or if we can, for example, do it at a greater pace on a larger scale. I think that the business will now be changed forever. So I don't really see it as a wasted potential only because on the way of looking for something new, we can really come up with something brand new. We should not stick to those things we've been doing up to now only because of for the sake of habit. We should really use this as a driver for changes that will stay forever. Petr Rokusek wanted to respond. I want to join the discussion about the philosophy of decentralization. Even small businesses can cooperate with other businesses. They can use the same templates, so for example, the same costs across the same ideas across the whole world. We are now experiencing that the changes are working bottom up, like in the education business. But when you take a look at it from the top-down perspective, then it's not working, and they are really losing the force. And you must really find the sound basis. And for example, I'm really sorry about the borders closed because I'm now in Liechtenstein, and I am really unhappy about the borders closed. The only response of the countries was to close the borders and to deep dive in isolation. But for how long? And how are we going to open the borders one day? I have the children in alternating care. Every 2 weeks I went to Czechia to be with the children, and now we are separated. And I think that many people will suffer from this. And I am sorry about the suffering of many people, and we are afraid about their health, but we mustn't lose the freedom. That's probably all. I will follow up on this. I will just come back in time because at the start, the discussion in the discussion we heard that the best people will be the first to hand in their notice to terminate their job. I'm now asking Tanya Vainio, the managing director of ABB Robotics. I would like to know how you in ABB Robotics are trying to keep your people calm so that you do not lose your best employees while you are thinking about the shape of your company in the future.
I think one of the key words that I would like to say is engagement. And engagement doesn't mean only to being engaged to what you are doing, but it also means by being engaged to whom you are doing for. So it's a lot about, it comes a lot to the leadership. And I think we as leaders, it's important that we show the way towards the way of the future. And I think some of you mentioned it today about mindset. It's not about, how do we overcome this period? It's about how do we overcome this period and how do we grow from this period to being even stronger company than we were before. And if you think about robotics, and we talk about future of industries, and we've talked about, Radek talked about SMEs, but also about Czech economy, then the drivers for automation and the drivers for robotics, they have not changed. It's about flexibility, it's about productivity, it's about quality, it's about safety. It's about staying competitive, it's about being innovative, it's about staying in the game. Those are the things that are so important, not only for Czech economy, for everything. So the long-term perspective for robotics and automations are there and they have not changed. And I think we as leaders, we need to show to our people not only how do we overcome the current situation, but the fact that our strategy has not changed and the fact that the future of robotics and automation is so exciting. It's such an exciting business to be in. And I think if we are able to convey that message as leaders, and if we are able to engage them not only to this message, but the way we want to lead them as a team, then I think I'm absolutely convinced we are going to be successful. I think it is a great test of what your company is all about, what you offer to your companies, but it's also a great test of leadership.
Já bych se možná ještě tady vrátil k jedné části a navážu na tu otázku toho leadershipu, protože já si myslím, že když se podíváme na firmy, které jsou opravdu ty malé, od 5 do 20 zaměstnanců, tak tam nejsou manažeři nebo vlastníci, kteří jsou trénovaní na leadership a na to, jak řídit krizový management a další věci. A že se musíme podívat i na tento segment firm a musíme si říct, že tohle jsou rodina, která má největší vliv na
owner-run businesses, and these businesses are really suffering from the panic in the media. We should also give some advice to these people so that they really stick to their basic principles and they do not forget to speak with their people in the company. For example, the people can't be in the workshop now, so they should maybe make a phone call with their employees, a personal, private one, and they must really make sure that the people that they are quiet. And if you do so, then you will probably go through this period very successfully, and the people who stay will be the most loyal, the most faithful, and will help you grow again after this time is over. So don't forget about the communication in these small businesses between the owner, manager, and the 5 or 20 employees. I do agree, but I will now return to the polling, to the voting. I am confident in the Czech creativity and ability to survive. I voted for C in the questionnaire, in the online questionnaire. We must channel the money to the people, because if the money, if the cash flow, if the blood of your business, then the infusion, the syringe must be applied. And I think we'll be able to do it in time. But survival is also about creativity and about an active approach, about facing the challenges head to head. But it's true that many small businesses have not gone to leadership and crisis communication training, but I'm very optimistic and they will manage. The worst thing, the most dangerous one, is an apathy, that you just give up. You relax and hope for somebody else to rescue you. I'm not seeing this around myself at the moment. So I think if we really support the people in their energy, then we will be ever stronger than before.
That was Tomáš Salomon, and thanks for your answer. We will move on. I mentioned that there would be 3 votes, 3 voting opportunities, and I'm now turning to 100 leaders from the Essential 100 group. You are the managers of companies, you are the creative people, you impact what we will be using in this country. And I'm now to ask the second question. In 2 or 3 years' time, what do you think? Do you think that the shock that the traditional Czech industry is experiencing will influence its development? A is whether it will accelerate it, B, it will slow it down or stop it, and C is it will destroy it. So again, this is a question targeted to the group Essential 100. You can see some of them, and among them we have, among others, Petr Jonák, Public Affairs and Sustainability Director from Coca-Cola HBC, Mr. Pavel Kysela, from CEO of Adastra Czech, Zlata Holušová, founder and owner of the Colors of Ostrava Festival, and Ivan Hodáč, founder and president of Aspen Institute Center Europe. These are people who give us feedback for the discussion, and they provide their feedback on the situation of the Czech Republic, because they can influence their company, but also other companies, their employees, and so on. So they impact on the global environment within the Czech Republic. So you are watching the Anti-Panic video conference. The 100 leaders are voting, we are counting the results, and once we have them, we can have a look at the results. The question is clear. How do you think the shock that the traditional Czech industry is experiencing will influence its development? More than 50% of the respondents think that it will accelerate. 42.1% think that it will slow the industry down or stop it, and only about 2% of people think that it will destroy the industry. So this makes us hope that this crisis can move us really forward. And I'm now turning to our 11 guests. Everyone feels that the current crisis should not be a huge crisis, that it should be a great opportunity. But looking at the situation from another perspective, let's say that I am a self-employed person, I have a small company, then when someone says that I should be creative and use the opportunities, well, that's a nice statement, but what should I really do? And I'm turning to all of you, and please give me some advice for the current situation. What would you do? And I can see that Tomáš Šebek would like to respond.
Já jsem chtěl jenom doplnit, že ta otázka by stála za to ještě
We should probably complement the question. It depends on how long the government measures will work. Well, I'm a surgeon, I'm a doctor, so it's the economy that should drive the healthcare. I think that we have already used all the money that was intended for modernization of the healthcare area. So we will see what the situation will be like in the healthcare area, and this can be one of the very important topic that should be discussed during this anti-panic conference. What I think is very positive is the use of the healthcare system. We expected that the system would be overloaded, but so far the situation has been good. So we will see what the situation will be like in a few weeks and what decisions will be taken. Maybe the measures are too restrictive and too disruptive for Czech economy. For me, this may harm the basic liberties. The state comes up with amendments of various acts and it starts to consolidate its power. And that's why I'm very glad that we have heard the term decentralization in this conference. And something going from bottom up is very important. So that's what I have wanted to say, that we should probably complement the question. I could see Yemi, who wanted to respond, and also Pavel Špicar. I don't want to turn this into a political debate, but for a number of times we heard the term creativity. It is in contradiction with what most people have to take care of, because when you are under stress, you need to find the shortest way forward. So it's counterintuitive to be creative in this period of time. So that's why we need to talk. For example, the event industry, although it's not the healthcare industry, it's not the banking industry, but it's all about meeting people. And this applies also to the whole entertainment industry. Actors, dancers, this type of people lost their jobs overnight. This industry was destroyed. And you can't see it, but beside Philip, or behind him, there are about 30 people sitting in the production, and until the last week they organized events, and now they are organizing a video conference. So what we should do is to be brave, to start something new, but also to think about whether it makes sense. Radek, you wanted to respond as well. Well, I would like to comment on what Tomáš has said. Yemi, sorry for that. We will definitely speak again about creativity. Well, I didn't want to be, political. I don't want to criticize the state. But Tomáš opened a topic that is key for all of us, and I will explain why. Every government, either in Europe or in the rest of the world, needs to do three things. It needs to be very fast, and speed is key not only in the healthcare area. What it needs to do is also to provide enough support, and the government wants to send this support, and the government also needs to know when such support should stop. So it should start relaxing the restrictive measures. Of course, there was a need for such restrictive measures, but we need to relax these measures, because otherwise the patient will die in the hospital. So that is key for us. And at the beginning, I said that Czech businesses have fulfilled their role and they contribute to the development and to the way out of the crisis. And we have another role. We have to publicly inform about this. According to the latest STEM opinion poll regarding closing or opening of the state borders, it was said that 60% of people think that it was a good step and that they would prefer the borders to remain closed until the end of this year. For us, it's much more important to show how we suffer from the closed borders, how much we suffer when people from foreign branches can't come to the Czech Republic, for example, to maintain a robotic line. So this is what we need to do. And I think that the whole industry will have to do that. I saw many of you wanted to respond, and Tanya Paño wanted to respond as well. So what do you want to comment on?
I would like to put in one word that I haven't said so much yesterday, and that one word is customer. Because if you stay, no matter if you're big or small, if you stay close to your customer and you understand their needs moving forward, you will know what the next steps will be. You will know what the next steps will be.
And very fast, I could see Petr Rokusek who wanted to respond.
Já bych chtěl tomu dát ještě trošku jiný pohled. Ona ta krize
I will offer a different perspective. The crisis now unveils a certain character of society. And I'm not speaking about people in the industry, because there are people who primarily want to implement their project. There were also people who wanted to make money on the system. And Yemi is a great example of someone who can adapt and who can show what his character is and that he can become a real leader. So it makes all of us naked, and I can see lots of businessmen who overload the business system. What we need to uncover are the pure, genuine leaders who are naturally ready to take this country and to show the direction forward. And we need, I don't want to make a revolution here, but I can well remember the period before the revolution. And I would like to uncover people who do business while pursuing some pure purpose, some nice purpose. I could see Tanya Lemoň who wanted to respond, so let's give the floor to Tanya. I have a comment on SMEs and businesses. I made a few notes. What we should do is to first understand what is going on. It might sound very easy, but we are a part of a global change, and we need to understand how this affects us. And panic doesn't work here. So we need to understand the whole situation. And another comment on people. I used to have a small company, a small business, and the employees, the people are key for me, because these are people with motivations, with a potential and with skills. And this period of time is unique because we as leaders should be able to use the potential of these people and to lead them to acquire the skills that they might not have currently. And I am speaking mainly about digital skills here. Yemi has mentioned his company, and he showed us that you could take part in dancing sessions, and we have various platforms and sessions with my team, and there are companies that understand technologies. They have the necessary digital skills. As we see the competitiveness of our country, this will be key. So first, we need to understand reality, what is going on. We need to be close to our people, and we need to be able to use their potential. Thank you. And within this block of the conference, I will pass the floor to Milan Šemelák. I would like to follow up on leadership and also on the abilities of the government. I have been active in communication for quite a long time, and I work with SMEs. There is one critical skill of the businesses. No one understands the support programs, the EU programs, and a leader should should speedily understand what is going on. Yesterday, for example, I had a call with someone from London. He has 4 bakeries, and he had to close them down. But he knows that he can cover 80% of the wages of his employees. So the message is very clear, but what we can hear from the media is that none of the SMEs understand what the politicians are saying. So we should explain the SMEs what they are entitled to, what they are not entitled to. So we should keep them informed. I think we should be the people who can easily explain this to them. This is what's Milan Šemelák. Let's move on because the third vote is still waiting for us. So this is a vote for the 100 essential people for Czech society. These are strategists, these may be creative people, and we are now asking them this question. If you were to choose just one type of state support, which one would be the most acceptable one for you? Either A, employment support and preserving jobs, B, compensation for lost profits, or C, deferral of payment of taxes and fees. So this is a question that the 100 people have to answer. And let's look at who is among those 100 people, because there are people from different industries and areas. For example, Jan Luntr, CEO of Innovatrix, Jakub Veselský, CEO, founder of Fresh Labels, Pavel Staněk, owner of Button and Pen, or Tomáš Sedlaček, economist. So all of these people, together with those that you can now see on screen, are part of the Essential 100, and they are providing their answers to the 3 questions which have been raised during these panels. So the last question is how the state should support businesses. You are watching the Anti-Panic Conference.
So we've now taken the vote and we are now counting the answers. We used the tool via Zoom and we are now waiting for the result. The result could be a guidance for the government on how to support the businesses. It is an important issue that is relevant for us. We want to know the opinion of the people, especially the opinion of those who have a say. 66% of the people would go for the support of employment and for retaining the jobs. Some 28% would prefer the referral of taxes and contributions to the state budget. Only 5 7.7% would prefer the compensation for lost earnings. So this was the last question in the polling that we put to the Essential 100. And for the last time, we will now address the 11 guests who joined us. So it's been almost 2 hours since we started with you. If I had one clear answer, one clear question, so please be concise, as concise as possible. The answer must be understandable and concise. So let us start with Tomáš Šebek. I would like to know from all of you which thing the owner or manager of a business should focus on most. One thing, please, in your business. I think it should be communication with the people around you. So it's important not only from the leadership perspective, but also with regard to the human being. In the crisis, communication is always better to stick together, to explain and keep communicating, and you can eliminate many problems even simply by sharing the issue with somebody else. I very often believed to be in a deep trouble, and then I just addressed some people, and within an instant the problem was solved. The communication may help, it is my experience, not only as from the business times, but also from the medical business. So please do not succumb to panic. There is no reason for panic, not only due to this conference. And I would once like again to urge to all of you not to be deprived of the basic freedoms. We must realize what is still acceptable and which restrictions are already behind the borderline. This was Tomáš Šebek. We are now moving on to Tomáš Salomon, chairman of the board of directors and CEO of Česká spořitelna. Which is one thing the owner or boss of a company should focus on at this moment? It was said here, the greatest asset of a company is the people. So the owner or manager should now mostly focus on the people, on the key employees, and on decentralization, so that the company is not influenced by the hierarchy, but so that it can really live from the ideas of the people from any hierarchies. And the company should focus on its customers too. So you should help your customers. Because once we are out of this crisis, then you will really benefit from it due to the loyalty of the customers. And this is true of the customers, this is true of the banking business really in every single aspect. We will not forget about clients. We will support them as much as we can. I do endorse the idea of liberty and freedom, but I remain optimistic, and I'm really looking forward to the normal business again. And I think we will also use this crisis to get rid of those things which have been a burden up to us. So this was Tomáš Salomon. Let us move on. Tanya Vainio, head of ABB Robotics Tier 1. So please be as concise as possible.
Stay positive and close to your employees and your customers. And challenge yourself to understand where is the opportunity? Where is the opportunity in this crisis? How can you reinvent your business model by understanding your customers, by being close to your employees, so that you don't only survive this crisis, but you come out stronger than you ever were?
Thank you. We will remain on a positive note. Yemi, next one.
So first, I just want to say thank you, everyone, to answering our call to come together in this interdisciplinary debate, because I find it essential for the times like this to sit behind one table virtually and to share our knowledge, our inspiration and our energy. A pokud mám říct jednu věc, co pomůže lidem k tomu,
now to answer
firmám,
the question,
přežili,
what will help the people to survive? We are here not to survive only, we are here to live. And this is a real wake-up call, so I think this is a good opportunity for all of us. We must just look once again on what we are doing, if it is making sense and if it's reasonable both for us and for the planet, not only for our bank account. Now we are moving on to Pavel Šiška. I will not repeat that we should stay close to the clients and to our people. I think that today we very often are running businesses with people who are much more skilled than we are. But we should not be overburdened with too many ideas. I think the leader must be able to identify the priorities and set them accordingly. But we live in a country with some culture. We very often avoid uncertainty. That is just in our DNA. And we very often tend to adopt various regulations because it helps our emotions, even though it might be irrational. We just like to see some measures, even though it may not be necessary at the moment. And you know that the top-down approach may not end up well every time. But thank you for the excellent speeches. Milan Shemelak, what is your view? So I would like to thank you all for the participation and excellent discussion. I think this was a great opportunity. When the business is thriving, we just talk about ourselves, but now is the time to listen to the people and to the customers. And when we listen, we will find out what the people need. And if we get adapted to it, if we are flexible and reorganize our business, we will go out through the crisis. Tanya Lamoni. I think these times are an opportunity to change the mindset. We can ask the question, what can be done differently? Everything will be different, at least many things. It is an opportunity to think different in a larger context. But for the Czech Republic, for Czechia, I would wish for a greater and better cooperation. Historically, cooperation has not been a great asset. Our social capital is the worst in Central Europe, and I would be happy if social capital in the Czech Republic they are utilized to a greater degree. I think this is a great opportunity for our small country. Schubert. I wish to act rationally and pragmatically. And if the restrictions remain too long, then it may pose a greater risk for the people than the contagion of coronavirus itself. And we must also realize that we should really act knowingly that the coronavirus crisis will be over within a couple of weeks, a month, and that is why we should now take decisions of which we will not be ashamed in a couple of weeks, a month, so that we do not use the coronavirus as a pretension, as a pretext. And thank you for being with us. Petro Kusek. I want to be specific. I think that capitalism will now be put to a real hard test. We will now see if the financial blood will continue flowing. I would really like to urge you to think about your morale as well. because we are now thinking about whether to stop the payments or whether to care about my employees. Will I retain my employees or will I will I make them redundant immediately? So please do not fail in this ethic question. So we should always stick to the moral principles, and we should only reduce the consumption of what we do not need. So this is the test we will go through in the upcoming weeks and maybe even months, and I hope it will not sweep us. Tomáš Havriluk. I would like to mention a couple of points. The first is do not panic. Just take the time to think and adopt the change that is ahead of you, because the times ahead of us will not be the same, will be dramatically different. But like Tomáš Salomon, I believe the times will be better than they have been. And we should all start with ourselves. We should be sincere with ourselves, and we should just ask ourselves the question: what will it change in my private and professional life? And then we must make sure that we navigate our families and businesses towards the better future. Tomáš Havriluk, thank you, and Radek Špicar, the last one. Tanya just stole my idea. So it's about cooperation, but I will now go into greater detail on this. I hope that the current situation will put an end to what we have suffered up to now. The handicap was that the small businessmen were only talking to the small businessmen, the large ones were only talking to the large ones. The academia did not communicate with the government did not communicate with the academia, and there was no cooperation, and I think it was a real handicap for the whole society. We should change it. I'm now referring to Yami's creativity. We must really interconnect the worlds. Creativity is born in diversity. You must connect people so that something unique can be created. This was Radek Špicar. Everybody probably appreciated that it was the last words now. I would like to thank you all, Tomáš Šebek, Tomáš Salomon, Tanya Vanio, Yemi Eidi, Pavel Šiška, Milan Šemelák, Tanya Lemoyne, Vujt Schubert, Petr Kusek, Tomáš Havriluk, Radek Špicar deserve a great acknowledgement for the participation. Philip, thank you too. Yemi, you were great. Thank you to the whole team. It was excellent, great. So I will now say goodbye to our spectators. Once again, I would like to thank Unicorn Attacks, Deloitte, the Yami AD team. You put it together within one single team. I would like to thank the partners, Coca-Cola, Medlove, Ipsos, and the production team that you cannot see. It is also the XX Lab team, which did a great job and helped us, enabled us to join the first anti-panic conference. We also thank the Hospodářské noviny paper for being our general media partner, and we will also appreciate your feedback on social media so that we know what you would like to prefer to see in the future again, and we will be happy to continue this in the future too. Once again, thank you for your attention, and I'm also pleased that I could join it. Have a nice rest of the day.